Hi there and welcome. This is Jennifer. Lately on Instagram, I've been sharing my love affair with creating things with felt. So I take things that I use for my paper crafting and I use those along with felt. And I'm having so much fun with it. A lot of people wanted to know more about this and wanted me to give some more tips. So I have kind of a longer video for you today. Sorry about that, but I wanted to stuff this full with as many tips as I can to kind of help you out. I'm not going to show all of these projects because the video would be 14 hours long, but instead I'm just going to give you glimpses into these projects and share lots of tips to help you get started. This is a great way to take your paper craft supplies and use them for more things. Now keep in mind some of the techniques I use today are with felt, but you can use them with paper like I did here for this card. At the end of this video, I'll also talk about the felts that I like and how I organize them. So be sure to stay tuned for that. I have free downloads over on my blog. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. In today's projects, I was really wanting to create things that hold gifts, like gift cards or little stamps or things. So you notice I make a lot of pockets on today's project. So just wanted to throw that out there. The dies that I'm using today are mostly from Simon Says Stamp. These are fantastic. They're meant for stitching, so they poke the little stitch holes also. So I use this felt here. This felt is from Tailored Expressions. Again, I'll talk about this felt at the end of the video. You can use any felt you want. I wouldn't use the least expensive felt you find because those are very stiff and they just don't make for a very soft project. Now, one tip that I do recommend when you are die cutting is to use a metal adapter plate. These are inexpensive and I use these for my paper crafting anyways, but the metal adapter plate really helps to make sure that there's enough pressure to cut through that felt nicely, and it really makes a big difference. If you don't have a metal adapter plate, I encourage you to invest in one. They're not that expensive, but instead you could put some pieces of cardstock as a shim under there. Now notice I'm cutting two pieces of that background egg. The reason I'm doing that is I like to double up so it's thicker, or you can also double up so that you can put stuffing on the inside for dimension. Okay, here I'm going to use the die to partially cut a piece of darker pink felt. This is going to be that pocket I was telling you about. This will give me a little pocket that I can slide a gift card in or a little stamp or a little gift. I'm making these for teachers and for my kids. Okay, so there is this little scallop border die that's in that same egg die set, and you can use it to create scallop borders or zigzags going across your egg to decorate it, but I'm going to use it just to add a decorative edge to this pocket that we've created. Be sure to look at any border dies you have for paper crafting because they would work great with your felt projects too. Okay, so now it's time to start doing the stitching here. I recommend getting an embroidery needle, and I recommend a needle nest. This has a magnetic bottom to it so that it holds your needles in place and it has a lid, and that way you don't lose your needles. Now there are a couple different types of floss I use. I'll talk about those at the end of this video. So now I'm going to start sewing this together. As I mentioned, I have my light pink eggs doubled up, so you'll see there's two pieces there, and then we'll add that pocket on the bottom. Next, I wanted to show you 3 stitches that I found work well with these felt die cuts. Please keep in mind that I'm not a sewing expert. This is just things that I found that worked and I wanted to share with you. The first stitch is the one that I use the most, and this is just a basic stitch. But here's how I do it. So I go from the back and I hold the end there. I'll end up tying that off when we're done. And then I go up and down every hole. Now, as I'm doing this, you'll see that this results in a stitch between every other hole. So it'll be a stitch and then an open area, a stitch and then an open area. That's okay. What you would do is go all the way around the project this way, and then go around it again to fill in those empty areas. And then you have a stitch between each hole. Now I'm not going to go around the whole project here. I just want to show you a little area. But here's what it looks like when you go around it a second time. You can go and do a stitch in between each of the openings. And this results in stitching that looks beautiful on both sides of your project. And after you've gone around twice, you just tie your ends together into a double knot on the back and trim it tightly. And there you can see how beautiful that stitching is. And that's what I do the most often. Next is what I believe they call an overcast stitch. This is actually what my 3.5-year-old daughter is able to do. I don't use this one, but it's really easy for her. Basically, you're always coming up the back of the project to the front, and you just go from hole to hole, and you end up with like these diagonal stitches along the edge. It does look nice. Now the stitch that probably is the most involved is what they call a blanket stitch. This one takes a little bit of time to get the hang of, but once you get it, it really is fun to do. So what you do is you always come up from the back, and before you tighten it, you have this little loop, you go down through the loop. So I'll keep doing this a few times. You might want to rewind and watch this a bunch of times, but you go up from the back through the hole. Now you go through the little loop from the front. So here, let's do it one more time. Up through the back, through the little hole, and then down through the loop, and then you tighten it. And don't tighten it too tight because it will cause your felt to buckle. After you practice this a few times, you really get the hang of it quite quickly, and it really is a beautiful stitch to use. Now it does look a little weird at that beginning stitch because that beginning stitch ended up going flat, but once you've gone all the way around your project, you hook through that beginning stitch and you'll have a continuous blanket stitch around your project. I do encourage you to check out some other stitches. There's some great sewing YouTube videos you can look at, but these are the ones that work for me. Now I decided to do the blanket stitch on this one, so I'm just going around the whole project, and notice I added on that little pocket that I created. So there's 3 layers at the bottom of this, but there's no problem stitching this because the die created the little holes for the stitching for me. Okay, so I wanted to show you another one of these egg-shaped projects and what I did on that because I did something a little creative on this one. You see the one on the right that is the sunshine. I needed a circle for that sun, but I didn't have a circle die with the little holes. It turns out I did have one, I just couldn't find it. But I just wanted to encourage you to look at these dies and use them creatively. I decided to use a smaller egg die. This is new from Simon Says Stamp also. And I'm just using the base of the egg to create kind of a half circle that I will use as the sun on this egg. So I encourage you to look at the things that you have and think about ways that you can use them on these projects. It really makes it extra fun. So here I did just a basic stitch around the outside, putting all my layers together, and there we have that sun on the top, and that grass on the bottom is a nice little pocket for a gift. Okay, here's another tip for you. You don't need to stitch everything on here. You can save a lot of time by using some glue. There are 3 glues that I use. One is just my multi-medium. This is a Ranger product. It's matte finish. And I have this bottle with that fine tip nozzle on it. And it's good for tiny pieces like these little sunshine rays. You can also use felt glue, which is probably a better choice because it's meant for gluing felt together. Or you can use a hot glue gun, which I do a lot because it dries so quickly and holds so tightly. Here I'm using the Ranger Multi-Medium because it's got that fine tip. Okay, now I also encourage you to add embellishments. Use your sequins, your gems, your buttons, all those things we've been hoarding as paper crafters. They're great on these projects. Here I am adding little pearls to the center of these flowers. I think one of the reasons I like making these projects so much is that all you need to get is some felt and some string, and then you can use all the craft supplies you already have. So here are 3 eggs I made, and that one in the middle I actually put a little bit of stuffing in the center. You can use like a batting, or you can just use cotton balls. While I'm here, I just wanted to show you another example, this heart here. A lot of people asked about this when I shared this on social media. I used a die set from Memory Box that actually cuts the little pocket for you. You could use the pocket or not use it, it's up to you. And by the way, you may notice that some of these Memory Box and Simon Says Stamp dies are kind of similar, the same kind of idea. That's because they work together on a lot of projects. Now for this one, I also cut a bunch of flowers from this Memory Box die set, a bunch of flowers and leaves from different felts, and this is one of my biggest tips, is you want to take all this stuff and pack it up to go. I'm always on the go. I know a lot of you are also. So what I like to do is die cut a bunch of pieces, find the matching strings, grab a needle, and put them in a Ziploc bag together. And then I take a bunch of projects like that, a bunch of Ziploc bags, put them with scissors into a reusable bag, and then I can take these projects with me on the go and do simple stitching. Sometimes it's hard to take your paper crafting with you. This is really easy to take on the go. Okay, next I wanted to give some tips for when you're die cutting thin pieces and you want to add some stitching to it. I love this die, this basket die. It's new from Simon Says Stamp. You can put lots of things in it for the springtime or other times of the year. One thing that you might want to do is give support to your felt using like a fusible interfacing. This is the product that I happen to use. It's very easy to use. All you need is an iron. You just cut a piece to be the size of your felt, and then you iron it on. Very easy, very simple to do. And what this does is it gives a support to your felt. It also allows you to stick pieces of felt together if you wanted to, but I just use it as a support. There are lots of different products like this out there that will allow you to give some support to your felt. So when you have thin pieces of felt, This will give it a little bit of strength so that when you add the stitching, it doesn't tear. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't do this all the time, but I think it is recommended to do this by Memory Box. They recommend it. However, I don't do it. I'm just careful when I'm stitching and I've never had any problems, but I did want to mention it in case it makes a difference for you. Now, after you have added the interfacing, then you can die cut it, and look at it die cuts beautifully, no problem. So now this is the piece that if it didn't have that interfacing on the back, it'd be pretty thin, and you just want to be careful when stitching it. But again, I haven't had any problems, and once that stitching is added to it, the stitching gives it some strength, so you don't have to worry about it like warping when somebody grabs this little project by the handle of this basket. This is the only basket that I made with the interfacing on the back. On the others, I just doubled up the handle, did 2 pieces of felt together, and that seemed to do the trick. If you're careful, I don't think you need to worry about it much. Now, while I'm here, I thought I'd go ahead and show you how I put this basket together. I stitched up and down both sides of the handle, so that's got a nice finished look to it. Now I'm going to add one side of the basket to one side of the handle. So I'm holding it right at the middle at the top of the basket, and I'm stitching right through it, and that's how I'll hook the 2 together. You could save a little effort by just gluing these pieces together, but I thought while I'm stitching, I might as well just go ahead and stitch them together. Once I've made it across the top of the basket, I'm going to go backwards just so I can fill in the stitches in between that were left open. And don't worry, we'll stitch the bottom of the basket here in a little bit. After we've completed the stitching across the top of this, I just take the ends of my string and double knot them. Now here's another tip for you. If you're worried about your knot coming undone or you really want to cut it nice and tight, go ahead and do your knot and put a little bit of hot glue on the knot or a little strong adhesive and let it dry, and then you can trim it tight and you don't have to worry about it coming undone. Okay, now to finish our basket, you'll notice it's like a pocket in there that will hold it. So here's how I did it. I went ahead and stitched the other part of the basket. We cut 2 baskets, stitched it to the other end of the basket handle in the same way. So it looks kind of funny right now, but once we have both sides done on there, we can go ahead and stitch our basket close. So I'm going to take the 2 ends and put them together and just stitch around the bottom using the same stitch. I've made a bunch of these felt baskets, which by the way, you could make from paper if you wanted to, but they hold a gift card nicely. You can put a little stamp in there to give as a gift or a little necklace. Now this you could use all year round. If you need a bigger basket, you could maybe die cut that large egg and cut the egg in half and use the bottom of the egg to create a larger rounded basket. Now here I have die cut 2 felt hearts and added a button with some string, and I'm just going to hot glue gun that right to the top of the basket there just as a little embellishment. I'm telling you, I use the hot glue gun the most. I create all my pieces when I'm on the go, and then I bring them home and glue them together. Okay, so there you have it, a little basket, and look at how it holds that stamp so nicely. These are really addictive, I warn you about that. And usually, again, I don't use that interfacing. I just think it saves time not to, but I did want to mention that if you have very thin felt. Here are a few other baskets that I have created. I'm going to show you that bunny one in a little bit. I created one with some fun colors here. And look at how those Hero Art stamps fit nicely inside. Now keep in mind you could use other fabrics for these techniques, or you can just use paper. If you're a true paper crafter and you want to stick with that, you can use the stitching techniques and stitching dies with cardstock. So here I used one of those smaller egg die sets from Simon Says Stamp, and I die cut from some cardstock. I think this is like 100-pound cardstock, and you can see how beautifully and easily you can stitch onto the cardstock. So for this example, I just did my basic stitching. I'll go around twice to make sure I have stitches between all the holes, and then I put this on a card. Now to embellish it, I die cut some of those same flowers that I used for the felt earlier, added some stitches to the center, and then used a hot glue gun to glue them to glue them all together. Now you could use any adhesive you want, but I just used the hot glue gun because that's what I had out. Here I am stamping a new greeting from Simon Says Stamp onto the bottom of the card, and there we have a very simple card that was created with some stitching. And I think that stitching just adds to the handmade feel of these cards. So remember, you can do all these things with paper also. You could even create those eggs with the pockets that I created before with paper and use them to hold gift cards. Okay, now if you're really addicted to this like I am, you can create fun shape things. Now remember, you can use dies you have and just poke your own holes with your needle as you stitch along. I just find that these dies that are meant for stitching are really helpful because they poke the holes for you. This is another new die set from Simon Says Stamp that creates these bunny pieces. I die cut 2 of the bunnies, and then I added some stuffing in between as I was doing the stitching. Here I'm just using a hot glue gun to add the little pieces to it. It comes with all these little die cuts or dies in the set to create all these little die cut pieces. Now for the eyes, I always like to use enamel dots just to give it a little bit of shine for those eyes. And there you have a cute little bunny. Now remember, you can also add color to your felt. A little bit of shading here and there using any kind of permanent marker. Here I'm using an R30 Copic to add some little blush to his cheeks. Okay, so our oldest girl is working at Disney as an intern this semester. She usually goes to University of Texas. So I wanted to send her a little gift in the mail. So I thought I would take this bunny and tie his paws together. That sounds absolutely awful, but it's with good reason. Hold on. So I'm just putting a stitch through each of the paws and tying it into a double knot so that I could tuck a little $20 bill in here. So think about ways you can use your dies to create pockets or holders or little enclosures for gifts to give to people, or you could just write a note on it and tuck it in there also. Another thing that I look forward to doing with this die set is to cut different ears for it and try to make this into a little cat or a little dog. I think it'd be fun to create different animals from that same die set. While I have that bunny die out, I wanted to show you how I created this basket here in the middle with the bunny and the basket together. Now I encourage you to look at dies that you already have and see how you can incorporate them into these projects. I had this bow die that I've had for a very long time, and it works great on these projects. So instead of using paper and traditional adhesive, I'm just using felt and hot glue, and I can easily assemble this adorable little bow that works perfectly on this basket. So I created this basket just like I showed you before, but I didn't actually use the interfacing this time. I just doubled up on the handle, so there's 2 pieces of felt sewn together there. And then I also stitched one of those bunnies that I just showed you. I didn't put any stuffing in him, but I cut his bottom half off. Man, I am being cruel to these bunnies. I apologize. But I cut him short so that I could tuck him in the basket. So he's popping out of the basket, and it still holds a little gift inside. It's just a fun way to combine the 2 together. So that bow, remember to look at dies you have and how you can incorporate them into these felt projects. This one, again, you could have created with paper also. At the beginning of this video, I warned you that I might jump around and stuff a lot of information in this video, but I didn't warn you about harming bunnies. I'm so sorry. I promise they are all okay. So let's go ahead and create another bunny, but this one we're going to keep completely intact. This guy is so much fun to make, and I've made a bunch of these already as gifts. And this is my tip. It's to be prepared that this is extremely addictive. So this is an older die set from Memory Box, but it cuts all the pieces to create an adorable little bunny, even the little pads on his paws. So I encourage you to do the stitching where it needs to be, but when you can skip the stitching and just use hot glue or felt adhesive to do so, because it can save you a lot of time. So I didn't stitch any of these little paws on. Instead, I just added them with adhesive, and you would be amazed how well that hot glue holds these pieces together. Also think about other craft projects or craft products you can tie in. Here I have a little pom-pom that I put on for his little tail, and this guy stands up nicely. You could leave him as is, but in this die set is the pieces to make this carrot. So I went ahead and I sewed the carrot together, and I'm holding him there, and I am hot gluing his paws onto the carrot. So he's holding the carrot there. And then there's an opening behind that. So you can slide a little gift card in there, or a little note if you want to, a little card. Or you could even put a little stamp in there. Can you tell I like to give stamps as gifts? So I was just thinking of ways to make it so that this could hold a gift also. Okay, so I've been getting a lot of questions about the felt and the string that I like to use. So I'm going to talk about that. And while I'm doing it, I'm going to talk about how I organize these products too. Now, the felt that I have fallen in love with recently is from Tailored Expressions. This is a newer felt, and the colors are beautiful and the quality is fantastic. There are lots of colors. I'll link to the ones I use. I did make a swatch book with all the different colors. I just die cut a heart and glued it onto the swatches. I have a free swatch download over at my blog that you can download if you're crazy like me and you bought all of the felts. You can use this. It's very easy to put this together and put them into coin pockets. If you head to my blog, I'll have pictures of all of these swatches so you can see which colors you might like to try out. Now this felt is 100% wool, so the quality is fantastic, and the colors are beautiful. You can use the inexpensive felt that you can get at craft stores, but the colors aren't always great and they aren't nearly as soft. Now these felts come in rolls with paper wrapped around them. You can also get paper tray ink felt. That's a beautiful felt and it's very similar and it's packaged in a similar way also. Now for storing these, I like to have them standing up so I can see all the colors, and I keep them in a fridge bins container. This is the same container that I store my clear stamps in, and you've probably seen this in videos before. They fit laying down in this container, but I like having them standing up so I can see them all. So these are my paper tray ink and my Tailored Expression felts together. Now I have my fridge bin container slid down into this yellow basket that you see. These yellow baskets are what I use in my craft room. I'll link to this also, but you can see the felts all stand up in there nicely. Now when I get a new felt like this one I haven't opened yet, what I do is I use my scissors to cut the little seal on it. There's a piece of paper wrapped around it and then a little seal. I go ahead and I cut that seal and replace it with a piece of masking tape, or I actually use micropore tape. It's a medical tape that reuses nicely. You can use it over and over again. So by wrapping this around it, when I need to get a piece of felt, I just take the tape off, I take out what I need, roll it back up, and then I can put the tape back on it. So as I use it and the roll gets smaller, I can tighten this paper up around it. And this has worked really well for me. I also like keeping the name of the felt on that paper with the felt so I don't get confused, even though I do have the swatch book. Now, I think the paper tray ink felts don't come with a name on them, so you got to figure that out on your own. But you can see this system really works well. I keep my glue gun with my glue sticks in a bag right on top of it. And then on top of there, I put my swatch of colors. And this is where I keep all my felts together. I do have some felt squares that I have in another container, but I've switched and I'm now using those felt rolls the most. Now for the string that I use for the stitching, there are actually two types that I like to use. The first is very inexpensive and it comes in some variety packs. And here are the colors. You can see the color choices here. They come like you see on the right there, and I take them out of that and I wrap them around these little white floss holders and I keep them in this container. It just works well for me, but you don't need to do this if you don't want to. Now this particular string doesn't separate into a bunch of threads. So this is very easy to use. It's easy to thread the needle, and it's just a basic floss. And a lot of the examples you saw today use that. Now the other type of string I use is this is DMC floss. Now this floss separates into a bunch of different strands, so you can make it thinner if you want to. This is actually my floss from when I was a kid and I did cross stitching. I've kept it all these years, and this works great for the stitching also. This comes in a lot more colors, but it does separate. So either would work perfectly fine, and I have mine organized around these little cards and in the little boxes. So there you have it, a ton of information about how you can use your dies for felting and stitching. I hope you give it a try. It is so much fun and addicting. If you're interested in more information, I have links to these products below in my YouTube description, or you can click here on the top left where you can find much more information on my blog. In the middle is another video I did on creating felt pieces and even adding foiling to it. So be sure to watch that. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back soon.